I guess we had a conclusion today to a case that's been in the courts for a long time. So a jury, and this was actually a couple days ago, found the father of Tyshawn Lee guilty of trying to kill three people to avenge his son's death. And if you guys remember Tyshawn, I mean, this was a really famous case. So I'm assuming that most of the people watching this video already know about this case. Tyshawn Lee, he was the 9-year-old who was lured into an alley and shot in 2015, and this was on purpose. Now, people say that, this, I've heard a lot of people say on the internet that this is like the only time they've seen a kid killed on purpose. Oh no, there's been plenty of other times, guys. In that video that I was just dropping on Sidebill a few days back, the guy was saying, F all said, I'm killing babies and all. Dudes will straight up tell you that that's what they're on. I mean, this is not the first time, but I think, though, more often than not, it is unintentional. But anyways, the jurors rendered the verdict at the Layton Criminal Court building after deliberating for several hours. And your heart goes out to this dad, Pierre Stokes, who was the father of Tyshawn Lee. Pierre Stokes was a gang member. Okay, he was a member of Kill Award, and this is a gang conflict that I covered a lot on my old channel. The conflict between Kill Award and BBG. There's several different sections of Kill Award, okay, and I don't know how well they're getting along right now, to be honest with you, like the two sections of Kill Award, but there's a lot of gangs right there that are kind of like real close around like 79th and Ashland, 79th and Damon. There's a Gville, okay, which is also GDs. This into it with Kill Award, which is GDs, and then BBG is Stones, Bang Bang Gang, or Terror Dome is what they call them. So 79th and Damon is kind of like right there. So prosecutors had told jurors that not long after the chilling details of the slaying of his 9-year-old son were revealed in court, Pierre Stokes encountered the girlfriend of one of his son's killers. He looked straight at her, threatened her, and then fired 6 shots. So this was something that people that I talked to from the neighborhood kind of disputed, that it was directly related to that. I can't corroborate this as far as like details the police gave, but what I was hearing from them is that the court didn't exactly get this right. But anyways, Pierre is now 33, and he was only 25 at the time that Tyshawn was killed. He was accused of shooting and injuring the woman and her 2 adult nephews in March of 2016 to avenge the brutal killing of his son Tyshawn Lee that November. And he began standing trial last week on charges of attempted murder and other felonies. So 8 years after the fact, he was found guilty of 3 counts of attempted murder, 2 counts of aggravated battery with a firearm, and 1 count of being a felon in possession of a firearm. The jury acquitted Stokes of 1 count of aggravated battery with a firearm. So Tyshawn was lured into an alley, as you guys know, by gang rivals of his father, where he was shot in the head. And this was actually in retaliation for the shooting of one of their moms. One of the BBG members' moms had been shot. Now, that was not, I don't think, on purpose. She was shot when she was in the car with the guy who was likely the target, but she got hit. Okay, they shot the car with her in it, and then after that, guys were sending messages on social media that it was like, now the gloves are really off. They shot his mom, like now everything's over with. I don't know if they insinuated directly that they were looking into killing some kids, but it was like that took it to a new level apparently. The mom did not die though. She survived that shooting, but it just, guys were turning their savage like all the way up, in this war between BBG and Kill Award. And one of the guys, he was talking on social media. I'm talking, one of the Kill Award guys was talking about how much, how much hatred he felt for them after Tyshawn got killed, man. And it was just taking this thing to just a crazy level, man. But anyways, Tyshawn was lured into that alley, and they were saying that was revenge for an escalating gang feud that had resulted in at least 2 fatal shootings prior to the boy's death. They said the rare targeted attack on a child drew outrage across the city and prompted protests, vigils, and calls for gun control. And the gun control thing, I'm all in favor of, trying our best to solve it that way, but that's not a solution at all. That's been tried with cocaine, heroin, meth, liquor, anything for which there's a demand in the criminal underworld. So anyways, they said, this is according to the assistant state's attorney, vigilante justice is not justice. And she told the jury that during closing arguments at the Layton Criminal Court building, she said street justice is not justice. So 7 years after the shooting, prosecutors were faced with a string of uncooperative witnesses, including the 3 victims in the case who declined on the stand to name the shooter, which is very interesting. And I told you guys, when everybody was making excuses for these guys who I say, this guy snitched on this guy snitched on that guy, like, and these are like high-ranking gang members that everybody looks up to, and I say, well, he snitched on this guy. They're like, well, no, he was snitching on rivals. That didn't count back then. Okay, well, maybe it didn't count back then, but it counts today. Like, you can't say nothing, period. These people were the victims. They said nothing. They kept their mouths shut. They did what the streets tell you you're supposed to do. They would not name their shooter. So the defense attorneys were basically saying that none of this stuff was reliable. The attorneys maintained that the Chicago police detectives were wrong about the motive for the shooting, working off of outdated knowledge of how city street gangs operate. And that's the same thing, honestly, that I heard from the residents that I talked to in the neighborhood. And these are like some, pretty solid sources that I had. These are like older guys, like guys my age from the area, who I know personally. These guys told me that was not why that really wasn't it. So anyways, they're saying that the police are wrong. And they were saying that the shocking killing of a 9-year-old fell not by a stray bullet, but rather shot in the head after he was lured into an alley with promises of treats, drew widespread media attention. Tyshawn was 83 pounds and 4'8" when he died, wearing an orange polo shirt and carrying a basketball. The slaying was a result of clashes between factions of Black P-Stones and Gangster Disciples, and Pierre belonged to the Kill Award faction of the GDs. And just as an unrelated side note, what I heard, just from the streets, I never read this anywhere, but I heard that Kill Award was like the first, or one of the first, factions of the GDs to go renegade. Like, they're really the ones who are, I guess, really could receive the credit, if you want to call it credit, for starting this whole, like, renegade, EBK type stuff. And, so they kind of broke off from the GD Nation. So Kill Award has a long history, and it's a very well-known GD set, maybe the most well-known GD set in the city. King Von is actually originally from Kill Award. He's not originally from O Block. He's originally Kill Award. Let everybody get that straight. He's from there. He's not originally from O Block. He went to O Block later. Like, he's known as an O Block member, but he's really from the ward. But anyways, so Chicago police arrested 3 people for Tyshawn's killing. Corey Morgan, whose brother was shot and killed weeks before the boy's death. And like I was just mentioning, okay, this is family ties here. Okay, Kevin Edwards and Dwight Boone Doty. And Doty and Morgan were convicted by juries and sentenced to 90 years in prison for Doty and 65 for Morgan. Edwards pled guilty and was sentenced to 25 years in prison. So what sparked the later shooting that Stokes is accused of, according to them, okay, was that, it was remarks during a bond hearing for Doty that prosecutors say caused this. And I don't think that's honestly accurate, man. They're saying that, these remarks were said, and then prosecutors allege that those remarks caused Pierre to turn up. Like, if that's the case, that's totally in disagreement with what the streets say. The prosecutor said that Doty laughed while he told other jail inmates that he shot Tyshawn in the head. He had considered torturing the boy by cutting off his fingers and ears, prosecutors alleged during the March 8th, 2016 hearing. And they were saying that he was angered after the details were released in court, and Stokes later that evening fired shots at Morgan's girlfriend and her 2 adult nephews at a gas station at 79th and Ashland on the south side. He looked at her and said, "I'm going to kill you," and then fired shots, wounding her. Whether it was actually the remarks that set Pierre off or not, who knows, but again, that's kind of like, that's just the prosecutors saying that. Anyways, they said horrible things were said on the news that day, horrible graphic things. He was upset, and anybody would be, so they've got to put a motive on him. They argued to the jury that the shooting was at 5:30 p.m. before the 6 p.m. news, and this is what I mean, man. See? So he hadn't heard the remarks yet. He went out at 5:30 and shot her, and the remarks weren't released until 6 p.m., so how did he know? She also said that the 4-month gap between Tyshawn's killing and the gas station shooting cut against prosecutors' argument. So they're saying that he was just so emotional after hearing about what, they had done to his son, that he just went out that same day and turned up. No, it was 4 months later. They said to try to say this is a retaliatory shooting for Tyshawn's death doesn't make sense, noting that the other shootings that were part of the gang feud happened in short succession. She said this happens 4 or 5 months later. It's not following that pattern. And I agree with her. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. But yeah, the prosecutor's allegation on the motive for this was far-fetched. But the fact is, I mean, they got that he did it, but motive, I don't know. See, there's some charges, guys, where motive is an essential element of the charge. So if you can prove, if the defense can prove that, okay, yeah, he did it, but he didn't do it for that reason, then the guy can actually beat the case, even if the jury thinks he did it. If he didn't do it for the reason that prosecutors say he did it, and if motive is an essential element of the charge, he can beat the case on that. I honestly don't know if this is a particular case of that. There's some cases where it doesn't matter if it's the motive the prosecutors say it was or not. As long as he did it, that's all that matters. So, you know, they're saying that he was doing this as revenge for Tyshawn as part of this gang feud. If they could prove that he didn't do it for that reason, I don't know. There's another video that I'm going to upload. I don't know if I'm going to get it uploaded first or after this, probably after, on Lord Gino, the leader of the Latin Kings. And they tried that with him. He had shot somebody and killed somebody, and then he had tried to shoot a woman who was with him. This was his original murder case that actually got him locked up. And the defense, in his appeal, had said that, you know, they had tried to put a gang motive on this, and it really wasn't a gang motive. And they had tried to get him to beat the case off of just that it wasn't motivated by gang stuff. But they weren't saying that he didn't do it. It was like it didn't work. You know, I mean, that argument didn't work in court. But you guys let me know any experiences you've had with similar cases. Is motive, do you guys think motive should be an essential element of the charge? And, you know, do you know of any other guys who have beaten cases where the jury thinks they did it, but they just didn't think they do it for that reason? The prosecutors are saying they did it, and then they can beat it. So personally, I think the defense is agreeing with the streets on this one, man. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. And I admit, I have not talked to the current gang members on this. That's my 2 cents on this, man. You guys let me know what you think, though, in the comment section, man. This is your boy, Chicago News. I'm out.